Hi, Julie. Is it Hi, John. How are you? Nice to see you.
I have some questions.
Oh, okay. And you know what? He wanted to do that legislation last year before we, and I had a bonus. And that's why they wanted to
Moderate this wonderful public gathering, and we're delighted that you are all here today, and we're just going to get started. And let me just say one thing that has worked in the past. If you have questions for us and you'd rather not come to the microphone, then feel free to text me at 216-4148, 216-4148. And what we'll do is go through our presentations. We'll take questions and answers, and then we'll take feedback from you all in the next 2 hours. So, Mr. Mayor, would you like to make some comments?
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you all for taking your time to be here today. We do very much appreciate that. You know, a lot of talk about City for Champions. One of the, I think, maybe most important elements that is not yet really discussed that much is not just the direct impact of City for Champions, but what is the catalytic effect, as we call it. And, you know, I talk to employers all the time, both those here locally as well as those from elsewhere, thinking about potentially relocating. We have over 450 primary employers in this community, and I've contacted all of them, most of them quite often, talking about what their needs are, how we can do better as a city of Colorado Springs in creating the most business-friendly environment to help with their success. And what I hear back and what I hear from companies thinking about relocating is that the essence is that the best employers want to be in communities which are vibrant and which can attract and retain the most talented young professionals. You may already know this, that we need to build our base of young professionals in this city. We just do. People 25 to 44, they're the heart of the employment base. They become our senior leaders both in their companies and their nonprofits, in their churches and synagogues, in their neighborhoods. We must build the future of our community in terms of the young people that we need coming forward. So how do we do that? I believe that City for Champions offers potentially one very important way to do that. So the catalytic effect, not just the direct payback in jobs and increased sales tax, but then the attraction of our community to the best employers who want to locate where young professionals want to be, I think is essential for the success of our region. So I just offer that up to you as something to contemplate. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Mayor Bach. Now I'd like to ask Commissioner Amy Lathan to come to the mic. Amy is the one who worked with the mayor to create these public meetings, and we'd just like to thank you for being so receptive to receiving all this feedback.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And we have fewer people here tonight, which is fine. We are here for you every month, no matter what. I'm sorry we're a little less exciting this month. We'll try to be more exciting in the future. And there's just going to be, there are going to be periods of time where we go along and there's probably not a lot new to report because obviously this takes time. But we are very, very thrilled that you took some time to be out here. Before I make my brief comments, I do want to say a great big congratulations to the Broadmoor and the World Arena on their announcement this afternoon. I was at that press conference. That's good. Have all the information here, but just a huge shout out and congratulations to the new Broadmoor World Arena and all of the exciting things that are going to come with that new partnership. They did mention that there's going to be an NHL preseason matchup on October 2nd. So if you hadn't heard that already, get your calendars marked. And that's going to be a very, very exciting game. Stephanie knows a lot more about hockey than I do. She was asking me about names that I had no idea, but I'm a football girl. The Avalanche and the Kings are going to be there on October 2nd, so that's very exciting. I just want to mention from the county's perspective, there's not a whole lot new to report. As you know, and we talked about last time, we did enter into the independent third-party review, entered into that contract to have a third party do an assessment of all of the numbers for the City for Champions and really vet those numbers and take a look so that we can have an independent review to really understand how these numbers are setting up and what this looks like for El Paso County. We really started on that process in December, and it's taken a while, of course, to put everything together. We have met with City Council. We have spoken with the mayor. We will work collaboratively with the city on that. But again, the whole idea is to have a third-party independent analysis so that we know that we're on the right track, so that we can really vet these numbers and be able to present those not only to all of you, but for ourselves as we make decisions going forward. So there's really, I'm sorry that there's nothing new to report yet on that. We're in the process of going through that, and I'm going to tell you, we're going to take the time that is necessary to get this done right. We don't want to rush it and come out with something that's kind of loose. We want to have a very, very good assessment so that we can make those decisions and present those. And so we're going to try to be as quick as we can, but we're going to be very, very careful to do it appropriately and take the time that we need. And when we talk about time, as I've mentioned before, there's a lot that is going on right now. Time to develop so many different aspects of the projects for this entire endeavor. That means fundraising, the philanthropic side of all of this, the private sector side, time that it takes to really go out and develop those relationships and those commitments. And so it's going to take time on a number of these things. The city is working on the resolution with the state right now. We appreciate those efforts and the discussions that we've had with that resolution going forward, and so I know that there will be more to report on that, which is why I say we're a little unexciting, because we don't have a lot of great, wonderful things to report to you, just because it does take that amount of time. But we are very, very grateful to be working with them and tracking with them as they go forward. And I just want to, the final thought that I just want to share, this is just kind of a personal note. We get a lot of input on this, obviously, as elected officials, and that's on both sides. And it comes from people in a wide variety of roles and throughout the community. We get emails, we get letters, we get phone calls, we talk to people out in the community at various meetings. And I am very happy to say that for the most part it's very, very positive, and it's a very good conversation. While we're figuring out answers to the questions that we still have, constituents are also figuring those things out, and we're having that dialogue. Every now and then we do get some letters that are a little bit more interesting, I guess I could say, and those there have been some that have come in recently, and I'm sure my colleagues have received some of these, that allege different things. And I just want to say for the record that I have not made any backroom deals with anybody on this project. I've lived in this city for 30 years. I'm raising my family in the city. I love the city. I'm a native of Colorado. I have not been threatened to support City for Champions by anyone. I have not been promised anything in order by support City for Champions and you get this or that or whatever. We get a lot of that input, and I've seen some of that kind of innuendo on social media as well. And I'm here to stand before you today and say that's just not the case. It's not true. It's not happening. I don't know any of these fine people here who are involved in any of those kinds of things. And I am here supporting this process going forward because it matters to the community that I love so much. And thank you. And if this is the right way forward, then we're going to keep taking those steps. As I've said over and over again, we are in a process, and it matters to the future of Colorado Springs, Colorado, and the entire region. And I'm thrilled because I want to keep my 3 kids here. They're getting older. One of them's already an adult, and obviously new opportunities may keep them here, may keep members of your family here, and that's what's so important. And so we're going to move forward openly with these kinds of meetings, with all the information that we have, sharing it with you, and we're going to smile and gently push back on those kinds of letters and those kinds of accusations, and just invite those folks to come in and share a discussion and a dialogue with us. And they don't have to agree, but I can assure you that I know of no one here who is in this for any nefarious reason. We are here for our community. So thank you for taking the time to be here with us. We appreciate it so much, and we look forward to the future.
I did figure out that Commissioner Lathan wasn't necessarily a hockey fan when I asked her if Duchesne or Stasny or McKinnon or any of those were at the press announcement. She didn't know what I was talking about.
Speaking French.
Yeah. There you go. And Commissioner Lathan, when we see you have to pop out a little bit early, it's not for an emergency. You have a very important mom duty. You need to go see your son play baseball. And I think everybody can respect that. So we will understand when you have to leave. Now, I would like to ask the voice of the community volunteers to come forward, Lauren Newman.
Thank you, Stephanie. And good luck at baseball, Mom. And good afternoon to all of you. And for some of you who weren't at our last meeting, you may wonder, why is Mayor Bach's former Chief of Staff and Chief of Staff for the City of Colorado Springs standing here? And briefly, let me just tell you my story. And by the way, there's no backroom deals with me either. I'm a community volunteer. I'm not getting paid. This is out of the goodness of my heart, because like Amy, I'm raising 2 young people that I would love to make home here in Colorado Springs. And personally, the history of wellness and renowned athleticism and patriotism of our great city has always had a very personal pull upon me. I've been a resident of Colorado Springs for 10 years. So to imagine that we could heighten that vibrant backdrop nationally and perhaps even internationally with the 4 City for Champion projects and draw and retain incredibly talented and diverse people to this place I will forever call home, it actually gives me goosebumps. So as a business professional with tourism, I have a 24-year hotel resort tourism background and a little 2+ year municipal government background, and now turned just proud stay-at-home mom. I could not passionately endorse what personally tugs at me at the very core of who I am. So I stand here tonight simply as community volunteer, and that's all that I am. But I made a commitment to this group that I believe in, that have committed so much of their time and intellect and professionalism, that I would come forward just as a representative of the community and tell my story and perhaps gain answers for myself to become more educated, because I was not one of those involved in the application process or any of the groups that met prior to this. I certainly just knew it was in the making, and now I would like to have a bigger role in it. And so I want to do 3 things tonight. One is follow up on some items, some of them controversial, that occurred at our last meeting. I wanted to share some news about our sister city relationship, if I could, Mayor, and also highlight for all of you who have an interest in getting involved in what can I do and how can I support City for Champions, or how can I get on board if you're currently a fence sitter. So those are the 3 areas I'd like to touch on. At our last meeting, there were several people that came forward that talked about the location at 25 Chimino and the issue of toxicity at that location. And graciously, Commissioner Chair Heisey took on that question, which I was very appreciative, because the issue lies within the city and city utility responsibility. So, but I would like to reiterate your answer, because it was relevant, timely, and it was true. And that is, although that location does lie within the footprint of the redevelopment urban renewal district of downtown, it does not lie in the projected footprint for either the stadium or the Olympic Museum. And the best solution is to have that area developed and have that addressed. But that will not be addressed as part of the City for Champions project. And so I wanted to address that right on and just reiterate what you already said, Dennis. Thank you. There also was at least one question from the audience. What other cities in our nation have done such an aggressive soccer, baseball stadium and have been successful? And I know that Doug Price named one at the time off the top of his head when asked that question. But actually there's been much research done by this particular group. And there are many cities in our nation, but there are 11 specific cities that have been identified where site visits will take place, where we'll meet with those officials and study what they did right and did not so right so that we can learn from them. And they include cities in Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, 2 in North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Ohio, New Jersey, and New York. And so there is more than just one to highlight that have been successful in this venture. I also wanted to address the issue of young professionals, and I hope there's more than a handful in the audience tonight that want to have a voice very specific as it relates to your group. And I know it's a diverse group, and you don't all belong to a single organization. We are going to be holding a town hall very specific to young professionals of any walk of life, any business, anyone looking for a job, whatever the case may be, to educate, but also hear your voice. So look for an announcement in the next 2 weeks specifically for that. And to touch on Sister Cities relationship, because it's so timely, and I don't want to make sure that the message doesn't get lost about how important it is to have this relationship with ancient Olympia, Greece. I had the opportunity, I was graciously offered an invitation to go to dinner with 2 dignitaries visiting here. It was the vice mayor of the city as well as the director of the International Olympic Academy. And that's important because I'm going to touch on that in a little bit. I also want to thank Harris Kalafanos, the manager of development and marketing for USA Wrestling, as well as Dan Hanaway, the president of Colorado Springs Sister Cities International, that arranged that. Harris is going to be at our next meeting to address his perspective on this particular relationship, but I just wanted to touch on the fact that we are, of course, the proud home of 23 national governing bodies. Okay, so we've got those bragging rights already. We are the head of not only the Olympics, but the Paralympics. And we have the world's finest high-altitude training center. So we have all this goodness already going on. So when we became sister cities, there were 3 areas we were going to capitalize on with that relationship. And the first happens to be academics. And I'm not going to steal Brian's thunder. Yes, Brian and I had a little speaking engagement earlier, which was rather fun. But I'm not going to steal your thunder. If you can touch on what you're already in conversations about as it relates to academics, certainly the Olympic connection, which is kind of a given. But then third is tourism. And with academics that Brian is going to touch on, you can imagine offering courses very specific to athletics and the Olympic movement and having an international student exchange program. So imagine that opportunity. With the Olympics, and certainly this will be touched on more about having the artifacts being able to be displayed from ancient Olympia and perhaps recreating some of the sites that they have is another big pull that we can have in our city. And finally, tourism, which we're all about here in the city of Colorado Springs, having joint international marketing opportunities with ancient Olympia being the Olympic capital of America. And so finally, I'd like to address the question that so many ask is, what can you do to learn more and step up and get involved, and those who are not in the room tonight? And one is to certainly keep attending meetings like this one, where you can hear from the experts on each of the projects. Visit the City for Champions website. I will tell you it's undergoing a facelift, so if you find it less than appealing right now and a little bit difficult to maneuver, we share that. And sometime before the end of this week, it will be relaunched, and you'll find a lot more information that will be updated regularly. If you would please fill out the supporter form, if you are a supporter, of course, on the site, so that we have your name and we can capture your information, not only to keep communicating with you, but we would like to know the numbers that are actually rallying behind the initiative. So it's important that we know who the supporters are. And certainly if you'd like to organize your own neighborhood meetings or your business associations, whatever you belong to, one of us will be happy to come and speak and help you with that. We encourage you to wear buttons and stickers and display them in your businesses and in your car, and write to our city council members, do an op-ed piece, or write on one of our social media blogs. We also would love to have, if you are comfortable in doing so, come forward and offer to be in a brief video that we can display on the website about what City for Champions means personally to you. So let us know if you're interested in that. We also have fact sheets tonight that basically summarize what I just said about being involved. I think they're over there at the door, so please feel free to take one with you. And without further ado, I think I'm turning it over to Dr. Purnett. Am I, Stephanie?
You were such a good tag team today.
Okay, we had fun. The students asked us some tough questions, by the way. I loved them. So,
Are we going to grab this house? Well, good afternoon, and thank you for being here to get an update on the UCCS portion of this project, the Sports Medicine and Performance Center. We do have some updates from last time. Here it comes. Okay, I'll keep talking. We have made some progress on our work, and next month at this regular meeting, we plan on rolling out the visuals for the two different feasibility sites. But as I described before, we intend to build this project in the North Nevada corridor, which continues to have good news over the last month. And it will either be attached to the Lane Center for Academic Health Sciences to the north of the building, or to the southeast of the Lane Center, and the Lane Center has been built to have either of those attachments to the next building in what we call the Health and Wellness Precinct of the campus's growth and development. We did get state authority to build this project, which is important for a state institution like UCCS, so getting the legislature to buy into us building this project was not a small feat. As I said in a couple of earlier meetings, we did put out a request for documented quotes for a national expert, state or national expert. We weren't deciding that way. We did have 7 proposals from both across Colorado and across the U.S. for a consultant, because we need to knit together in the vision of the City for Champions, how do we build an exemplary sports medicine and performance center that will attract world-class athletes to come here for research, for training. And we don't believe that we have that expertise at UCCS. And so yesterday, a committee that I serve on, we narrowed the 7 respondents to 2, and we're now working on scheduling the 2 finalists to come in for a face-to-face interview with campus leadership about who will be best to help us knit together the elements of the Sports Medicine and Performance Center. So we're excited about that. We'll hope to have that done by May 31st. And as we've said before, I just want to reiterate this again in a public setting, we see the funding sources for this being the state TIF proceeds, of course, thanks to the great work of so many who got that approval back in December, but leases with private or not-for-profit corporations, bonds that the University System is willing to issue, and we're also working on a philanthropic piece. It's got a naming opportunity. The Chancellor's already working on her first philanthropic gift of some magnitude, so it's got a number of funding sources, but none of which include any city or county local tax dollars. We aren't going to be asking for that. It's not part of our process, and so that it's just not one of the fund sources we intend to use. And finally, to Laura's point, we did have we were invited today to speak to a class of about 20 students at UCCS who study. There's a whole class in Geography and Environmental Studies department called Tourism and the Environment, and we were asked to come. And Laura's a natural college teacher. I think we've got a new job for her after today. But these students were pretty excited and had lots of good questions. But the one thing we talked about today was this, what's happened even since last month is the Olympic City, sister city agreement with Olympia, Greece. Well, we had the opportunity to meet with the International Olympic Academy, which is actually an affiliate of the International Olympic Committee, not the United States Olympic Committee. So we're talking global now. And they're, of course, in Olympia, Greece. And they are looking for an educational partner. And so we are putting together a proposal, potentially for, as Laura said, some exchange programs for students who work in our sport management program to potentially go to Olympia, Greece for summer work that they're doing. They already have a couple of partnerships for just summer programs with Harvard and Yale, not bad company to be in. But they want to talk about potentially a master's degree in Olympism, in the Olympic ideal, that potentially would be delivered by UCCS because of the Sister City Agreement and because we already have a sports management program within our College of Business. Well, we think we could deliver that online around the world with summer programs in Olympia, Greece, and maybe the second summer in Colorado Springs. Our business faculty are already working on a proposal to see if it would meet that muster. So that's pretty exciting too, and I think it does come out of this City for Champions process and trying to work on leveraging this brand, this home of the United States Olympic Committee, home of the Olympic Training Center, and making that work, and how can the university help strengthen those ties both on a sister city relationship but also expand the university's brand to being part of this Olympic movement. So we're very excited about that, and we're going to work on it, and it's got to make fiscal sense to us, it's got to make operational sense, and it's got to meet all of our accreditation standards, so sometimes it's a little interesting admitting students from around the world to your programs, but it's something we do every day. We have about 200 international students right now at UCCS, so maybe we'll just have a few more that might be doing a master's in Olympism if we put this together. So we're just working on that proposal now, and we appreciate the city and the Sister Cities program for allowing us to meet with the international Olympic people who are here. It's very exciting for our campus, so I'm happy to take any questions. Oh, well, yeah. The other cool thing, across the street from this place, if you see a hole in the last pad, and I can't take credit for this, this is work of Kevin Kratt and Tom Cohn and his group, but that big hole that's being dug south of Tokyo Joe's, right in front of Lowe's, across the street from the Lane Center, is the plans to be the largest Starbucks in El Paso County. And that, on top of Trader Joe's coming to the north part of University Village, Colorado, we're pretty excited about that. And I told the group earlier, Mayor, if I can, the governor just got the state budget on his desk for approval, and in that long bill, about page 528, is a $13 million investment in UCCS's new Visual and Performing Arts Center on North Nevada, which is really cool. These all work together for what we're trying to do for the North Nevada corridor for our city, and I think it really bespeaks what the university can mean for the community, and we're just happy to be a part of this project. So thank you very much.
Dr. Burnett, what is the building, since you're in the know? What's the building by Noodles and BJ's parking lot?
Oh, that's a spec building, Kevin's building. He's working on tenants for it.
Ah.
When I talked to him last about it. Yeah, that's a spec building.
And we had breakfast today at Over Easy, not to do commercials or anything, but Over Easy at University Village was fabulous. It's wonderful, lots of good stuff. Laura and I had breakfast, so that's why she's laughing so hard. Okay.
Great view, too.
Great view, that is true. Carlos Cruz Gonzalez, would you like to come talk to us about the Air Force Academy?
Thank you, and good afternoon. Since our last meeting, frankly, we're still going through our development phase for our project. We, much like UCCS, we have to navigate not only the RTA requirements, but certainly Air Force requirements, DoD and federal requirements. And so at the superintendent's request, we've been working on an assessment of a couple of different locations on base for us to place our visitor center so that it's not only accessible to those that come from out of town to visit the academy in Colorado Springs, but it's also readily accessible to those that transit I-25 on a regular basis. And so we'll complete that process here the last week of this month, and hopefully at the next update I'll be able to share some of the information with you. And then as part of that development process, then we've got a series of activities that we have to undertake with our stakeholders back east to be able to gain approval for us to pursue the project and engage with our what we hope to be our stakeholders from a private funding perspective, both at our local level and with some public-private partnership with some potentially interested parties, so that we can move forward the project in terms of concept development, design, and ultimately execution. I'll be happy to entertain any specific questions when we get into the Q&A piece, but again, thanks for being here, and we're certainly real happy of being a part of this effort to make our community better. Thank you.
And Doug Price, would you come up and talk to us about the Colorado Sports and Events Center?
I will.
Brian, I want you to know that one of my goals at one of these updates is I want to have a slide. We don't have a slide yet to give an update.
Send
But
one in, Doug.
just really two quick points about the Colorado Sports and Events Center. One is if you noticed in the news the other day that the Regional Tourism Advisory Board has been named, and Luke Travens from Concept Restaurants has agreed to step in and kind of head up the advisory board seat as it relates to the Colorado Sports and Events Center. And Luke is an athlete, downtown business entrepreneur, a philanthropist in this town who started the first tea concept, and we're pleased that he's agreed to volunteer to help us on this. The other thing I'd like to just mention is that the mayor, along with the RTA Advisory Board, really wants to form a working group around the Sports and Events Center in the very, very near future, to stand up this group that can look at all the possible financing models, look at the cities that we can benchmark this against, and make sure that we are doing this in the right way. But we're not going to speed through it. As we said last month, this is going to be a year-long process, and so we are going to do it diligently, and we're not going to be bound by a clock to make sure that we do our due diligence the way we should. So we're moving ahead. We're pleased that Luke is going to step in on the RTA Advisory Board to help us with this. And once again, I'll be happy to answer questions. Thank you.
And now I'd like to call up Andy Doyle, who sits on the Olympic Museum Board, to give us an update on the museum.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thanks for being here. I have a little less information to provide for this meeting, albeit very exciting news for the museum. First off, the EDC last week unanimously approved our enterprise zone approval. And as you might know, that is really advantageous for individual donations, and so the museum is very happy to proceed. Just being able to provide more information for the individuals as we move forward in our development and philanthropic endeavors. Next, we have a draft agreement between the Olympic Museum and the USOC in place. It is in draft form, however, it is a working project. We hope to have that finalized by our June meeting. And finally, our RFP and RFQ phase for the design architects, architects of record, exhibit designers and fabricators and contractors. The project, those submissions, the doors closed on those. We're no longer able to get people in to have those. I'm sorry. However, point I'm wanting to make is that we have 19 design architects that have submitted RFPs, and these are from all the top firms around the country. We have decided not to go internationally on those, and we're very, very excited about the submissions that we've received. We have 7 architects of record, 5 contractors, and just a note, the architect of record and the contractors are all going to be local. So there will be familiar names that you've seen around town. The architect of record is going to be, the submissions have been coming from Denver and Colorado Springs. And exhibits design and fabricators, we have 8 or 9 of those. So it's an exciting time for the museum. We do have a open group that have agreed to come alongside the museum board and review those, a selection panel, and then they will score those applicants and generate information back to the museum board for our approval. That's it. Thank you.
We're often confronted or urged in this community to think about young professionals, and wisely so, because it's what keeps a community alive. And so we're pleased today that Julian Flores could be here with us. He is a dynamic young leader in Colorado Springs who is creating business growth. And we're very fortunate to have somebody of his caliber amongst our young professionals really making things happen. So I'm going to ask Julian to come up, and he has a presentation for you.
Hi, guys. It's really a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Stephanie, for that wonderful introduction. I'm not sure I earned even half of the credit you just gave me, but I'm really excited to be in front of you today. And what I want to talk about is why I think I need and I support the City for Champions project. And I'm saying this as an entrepreneur. I'm a founder and a CEO of a startup here in town, and really as a community member. And I'm going to talk about my background first so you get a little bit of context for why I'm here today. But I certainly appreciate the opportunity, and when I'm done, I really do want to engage with anybody who has questions when it's the appropriate time. So a little bit about me. That's me up there. I've been here for about 10 years. I came here from Palo Alto, where I got my degree from Stanford, and then I landed at El Pomar Foundation as a fellow in their wonderful program there. I went on to start a nonprofit consulting firm, and then in 2008, a couple of colleagues of mine and I started a charter school here in town in Southeast Colorado Springs called Atlas Preparatory School. It's doing really well. There's more than 700 students on the path to college now in Southeast Colorado Springs, and it's just been a wonderful opportunity for me to get engaged in the community. I left that about a year ago to start a new company called Get Outfitted, and I hope within the next 18 months or so, you guys are hearing a lot about this company, because I hope we fulfill our promise to really disrupt the outdoor industry, and I can talk to you about that some other time. But in this last 9 or so years, I've been personally responsible for creating jobs and hiring at least 75 people. I couldn't keep track of how many, so I'm standing in front of you as a job creator. More importantly, I think, though, is I'm standing in front of you as an active member of this community. I've been deeply involved in the community since I've been here. I've been volunteering since the day I landed here. But I guess in the bigger roles that I've played in the community, I serve on the board of the YMCA of the Pikes Peak region. I'm also a graduate of the Colorado Springs Leadership Institute, which was a wonderful training program for folks like me. And then recently I joined the Downtown Partnership Board, and the list keeps going. I know I'm also now an appointee of the RTA Advisory Board, so certainly deeply involved and committed to the community. I do want to say, too, by the way, that I haven't been given any Kool-Aid. I have no connection to the folks who are leading this project whatsoever, so everything you see today is 100% my own opinion that I've developed myself through talking to colleagues. And so even the work up there, it's all mine. So I can assure you no tax dollars were harmed in the making of this presentation. So I want to start with what we can agree on. I think that's always the best place to start. And these are some general things, but they're important. I think having been here for almost 10 years, I think we have to start with the assets that we have in this community, and they're tremendous, in my opinion. The location obviously is huge, but the people, the way that we rally to support our own community, especially in times of crisis, is just unbelievable. The institutions that are in this city, I think, are head and shoulders above many other cities of our size, be they academic, even religious or military, philanthropic. We have incredible institutions here that are the bedrock of this community. And then I think we can probably all agree that there's a lot of potential energy, a lot of ideas, a lot of buzz, and I think we're on the cusp of breaking through and really releasing this potential energy. Looking forward to what we do with that, I know City for Champions for some people isn't the right choice. In my opinion, it is, but regardless of whether we agree on that, I think we can agree on where we want to go as a community. And actually, the mayor said it when we first started this session. I think we need to head towards a vibrant, modern, and forward-looking community, one that is not going to stagnate, okay? So I think we have a tremendous opportunity here. So that's hopefully what we can agree on. Maybe the rest of what I present on, I don't know if you'll agree. We'll see. So I'm going to start with what I believe. I believe that this city really needs something big, and we need something big soon. And the reason why I believe this, I'm going to lay this out in a couple of slides, is that we need to become a modern 21st century city. And to be very honest, from my perspective, we're not there yet. And if we don't get there with this something big, I don't think we're necessarily going to survive, or at least grow. So it's very apropos of Mayor Bach's comments to begin with. He used the word catalyst. I've been using the word catalyst. We had no dialogue before this, but I think it just shows that we're probably in agreement that we need something big to really make the city evolve to the next step. I personally believe, from what I've learned, and I have a lot more learning to do, that the projects themselves will be ROI positive in terms of tourism. I start with that, and I believe in that. But, more important to me is I think there's a multiplier effect that's going to come into play that is going to produce a lot more ROI for the community in terms of job growth in companies like my own. And I'm going to talk about what that will be. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity for a return on our efforts here. And then the last thing I'll say before I really dig in is incremental growth or incremental investment, in my opinion, is not going to get us there. We can fix, and we need to fix, stormwater issues, potholes, crime, homelessness issues. Like, we need to do those things, and I think we will do them. I think we'll address those. But even when we can address all those things collectively, I still don't think it's enough, okay, from my perspective. I think we need something big. So here's where I start. I think the downtown project, I'm going to focus on the downtown 2 projects because that's what impacts me the most personally. I think if we build these 2 projects, I think we're going to have an innovation hub, okay? And I see this with the colleagues I work with every day in the startup sector. So if we build the 2 projects, I think we're going to have a cluster of innovators. In my opinion, innovators want to be somewhere in an urban core. It's not even my opinion. It's actually really happening across the country. So the first thing I start with, we build these 2 projects, we're going to have a home and a cluster for innovators. And you know why? Because these are the things that they're attracted to in an urban core that you cannot get in the suburbs, that you cannot get in a strip mall, that you cannot get in a development outside of the city. Things like the high energy, the interesting living opportunities, entertainment, food, those kinds of things, of course, but most importantly, other interesting people to be around. So that's where I start. You build the projects, we start to have a place where innovators want to be and live and work. What do innovators want to do? Well, they want to build companies. Okay, people like me want to build companies, want to do things. So I think innovative people, if we cluster together, we're going to be building cool things. Okay? And the unique opportunity that I think we have here is to actually really rely on our city's DNA and our community's DNA, which is different than Boulder's, different than Denver's, different than Silicon Valley. So I'm not talking about like how we have to replicate some ideal startup culture that you might see in Palo Alto with the crazy offices and people riding around on Segways and stuff. Like, that's not necessarily us, right? But I think what is us is a couple of things. Outdoor industry. My startup's in the outdoor industry. I have at least one other colleague that is launching a startup in the outdoor industry. Tremendous. This should be the home for outdoor industry startups. They shouldn't be anywhere else. And if they are, we're losing that game. Health and wellness, sports, medicine, lifestyle. These are some of the things that I think when we coalesce this group of innovators, I think we can have a tremendous opportunity to give them a home in a downtown setting. So here's the thing. Like, you might be thinking, okay, startups, it's the hot, sexy, trendy thing, right? Like, at the end of the day, who really cares? We need to be bringing big corporations here in headquarters. I get that, but that's not really, I think, our opportunity for growth necessarily. A lot of people don't know this, but right now, the only net job growth in our country right now is coming from startups. There's a lot of companies that are hiring, but they're also shedding jobs at the same time. I couldn't believe this when I found this out, but literally the only net job growth is in the startup sector right now. And beyond that, the number of startups, the volume of new startups coming online far outpaces any other sector of any private business in our economy right now. So like, startups aren't just cool and sexy and fun for like young people. Like, these are really hugely important parts of a modern economy. And in my opinion, if we don't tap into this, we're not going to be part of that modern economy. So you build the 2 projects downtown and the other projects. We start to have some clustering of innovators. They start to build cool companies. They bring talent, okay? So for me and my colleagues that are in the startup sector, and there's a couple of us that are really on the cusp of this, hopefully breaking through this right now, is we're ready to hire cool, interesting young people from all, not even necessarily young people, just interesting people from around the world to come here. We're looking for talent right now, and this is a really hard, it's a tough nut to crack right now, to be honest. But here are some of the trends that you probably know about. So startup jobs are really abundant in cities only. You're not going to find startup jobs in rural areas or suburban areas. It's just the honest truth. Startups are almost exclusively located in urban cores. And that's where I want my company to be. It makes sense. It's for the reasons I've already stated. The other thing that's really interesting is demographically, people are really migrating to cities in general, not just for startup jobs per se, but for jobs and to reduce expenses and to get closer to a community. So, and actually, I just looked this up the other day. This is the first decade in the last 100 years that more people are moving to cities than the suburbs. So there's some massive changes happening in our cityscapes, and ones that I think we really need to be aware of and tap into, lest we fall, into stagnation. And it's not just millennials. Everyone talks about the importance of millennials, but boomers, huge demographic that are making huge lifestyle changes and decisions for cityscapes. So we have to pay attention to both of those communities. So for me, again, you start with the projects, you get some clustering of innovators, they're making cool companies, they're hiring talented people. And if we don't tap into this, again, I think we're not going to be a 21st century city. And again, I don't think we are right now, to be honest. But I want to be. So you've got the talent, you've got people moving to cities. If we can maybe tap into some of this talent migration, then we have to be ready for a different kind of lifestyle that city life is demanding these days. I don't know how much time you guys spend in other cities, but man, it's pretty interesting and cool what's happening in some other cities. A lot of cities, and I hope we can be among them someday, are evolving to accommodate what I consider basically a 21st century lifestyle. Mixed-use housing, walkable and bikeable neighborhoods. This is hugely important. Part of that is because, I don't know if you know this, but millennials are really not buying cars anymore. People used to think a couple of years ago it was because the economy was bad and they're just delaying purchasing decisions. The economy's recovering, people are getting some jobs. It's turning out that young people just don't think they need cars anymore. It's not part of their plan. It's a really interesting change for people like myself who want to employ those folks. If I want to bring talented people who don't care about cars, who want to bike to where they work, who want to have a local public market next to them, I have to be in an urban core to find those people. There's no way I can do it in a suburb. It's just not going to happen. And then the other thing about cities that's really exciting for me, especially where my startup is seated, it's in this part of the economy called the sharing economy. Those of you who have been to large cities lately may have used Uber to get cars, Seamless to get food delivered to you. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different apps and services now that help people share with each other unused products or borrow things or rent things from each other. You can only do this in an urban core where there's a lot of people. Okay, so these are some of the trends that are really informing where I need to think about. And people ask me, I'm going out to get some venture capital here in the next couple of months, and already I'm getting conversations about, is your startup really going to be founded in Colorado Springs? Are you really going to stay there? And my answer is, yeah, absolutely, if I can. Part of that is going to be, can I locate my company and get the investment dollars to attract the right kind of people who have the right kind of lifestyle, who have the right kind of place to live. And to be honest, right now, it just doesn't exist. But I think my point in all of this, as I'm wrapping up here, is that we need a catalyst to get us there, and I think we can get there. So here's just my perspective on the nation. And I've been to a number of different cities now and really thought about this a lot in terms of locating my company where I am today. So this evolution that I'm talking about into a 21st century modern city, it's happening in so many interesting places that are not the coasts, that are not the major cities. It's happening in small and mid-sized cities across the country. I mean, you're talking about Provo, Utah, Lincoln, Nebraska, Huntsville, Alabama. I mean, these are places that are actually really, really tackling this problem and attracting really innovative companies who are begging for really innovative people and are building out their downtowns in places that you never would have thought of. And guess what? Investor capital is following them in droves, okay? The last few years, investor capital has mostly been on the coast, but it is pouring into the Midwest now. And so we have a huge opportunity. And for me, I have to be able to get into that flow. So I think that we have a responsibility to be on this map at some point. And if we don't, I won't survive. I'll have to go somewhere else, and my colleagues will have to do the same. So this is our opportunity to become a 21st century city that belongs and is on this map. So as I wrap up here, I just want you to realize that, I desperately need this kind of evolution. I think City for Champions is going to be the matchstick that ignites this process. But I hope, too, that you're kind of understanding, at least from my perspective, as I quote-unquote represent the young professional generation, that we as a community all need this. Whether you choose to live in downtown or whether you want to deal with parking headaches while trying to get downtown someday, fine. But in order for this city to move forward, we really have to have this urban core that is vibrant, has a strong cluster of innovators, has talented, amazing people in it, and they have something to do that's interesting. And without that, I don't think we're going to be a 21st century city. So let me just wrap up here and say, here's how I start. Tourism, yes. I think this is going to be ROI positive on tourism. I think it's going to be a great thing. But for me, where this really boils down to is the crossroads of getting into innovators into a home, making cool companies, tapping into the city migration that's happening all over the country. And to me, if we do these things, we'll have a modern city, which really, to me, means progress. And I'm really excited to be part of that progress. Thank you. I put my contact information up there for a reason, so please, I really do want to engage in conversation, so please, you can reach me on Twitter or email me as well. Thanks.
So before we start our question and answer session, I have a question for you. How many of you would like to be Julian Flores when you grow up? And Julian, I'm very impressed that you used the word eschewing. That is very interesting. I'm not even sure I said it right. So very well done. Because this is a lot smaller group than we've had in the past, I'm not going to segment it by question, answer, and feedback. If you have things you'd like to ask, if you want to give us feedback, just come to the mic now. And I have to tell you all, you're a lot more lighthearted today as well. Because the only question I've received so far, and this is for Doug Price, should men wear bow ties? Yes. I know it's difficult.
I guess that's probably a little easier than boxers or briefs.
We can go there.
The only bow tie I have is a black bow tie, so I'm probably not the best one to comment on.
Fair enough. Madam?
I just want to, you know who I am, and I know who you are, and I know where to find you. But I just want to first and foremost, again, thank you all. And this is not a question, because I feel like whenever I need an answer to something, you all are very, very wonderful about answering them via email or whatever it is. But my comment goes to Julian. As someone who has been here 20 years and who is, well, more than 20 years, but the conservatory is 20 years old. And I'm really pleased to say that just this school year, I hired 11 people, of which 2 were from out of town, and 6 were alumni, young people like yourself, 26 to 31, and they too see this. So what I'd like to ask is if I might have the permission to bring you to the conservatory to host a young professional event so that you can spread your contagion, your beautiful contagion. So thank you very, very, very much for being here today and for being so concise and so creative and so relevant. Thank you.
Mr. Murray?
Hello, good evening. Since we're being lighthearted here. Mr. Flores, you do understand that a stadium and a 15,000 car garage, okay, is the antithesis of what you just described up there. And what innovators and startups want is infrastructure. Now, Dick Celeste lectured us last time he was here talking about the need for building up our telecommunications infrastructure. And a stadium? Don't quite understand that. But what I'm here to really talk about is the subject that we missed last time, and that is Dr. Shockley, Mr. Heisey, and of course Mr. King specifically stated in public that the resolution was hopefully inadequate, and it was missing parts that were imperative to the success of this operation. Yet I understand that the mayor submitted that resolution without the changes. I would like the county commissioner, the city council president, and the gentleman representing the UCCS to talk about these particular issues.
Who would like to take that? I know that's all incorrect information, so who would like to speak to that?
Speaking only from the county perspective, I'm not speaking for anyone else. Are there changes that we suggested to the resolution that were not included? The answer is yes. Have I been in discussion with the mayor about that and how to address those concerns, be they in the resolution with other documents? The answer is yes. So it's not, the resolution has not been signed. It will eventually be signed, not by the county because the county is not the applicant. But whether our concerns are addressed in the resolution or in another manner remains to be seen, but the mayor has assured us that he will work with us to address those concerns.
Well, I'll just quickly say a few words about this. Julie and I have a lot in common. We started charter schools and have been entrepreneurs, so I like entrepreneurship and want to see it be successful and have an opportunity to go forward. My concern about the process of this particular project is that we have a bottom line to it that makes sure that there's accountability and that there is check and balances to make sure that the system goes forward in a way that it can be successful. And so what we talked a little bit about in the advisory meeting today earlier was what steps are necessary in a startup to make sure that you have the finances in the place, you have the things where they need to be to make sure that they're successful, and how are you going to have that go forward. I don't think we're there yet. I think we have some work to do on how to do the overall structure, and I think before some of these things go forward, we need to make sure, as in any startup, you have adequate capital, you have the financing put in place, you have all the leases done, and you do things that are necessary to be done. I'm starting a new charter school of Colorado Springs Early Colleges right now in Parker, and we are going through a process of trying to finance it, and I worked all weekend on putting about a 4-inch thick group of information together to try and get financing for $16 million for the 3 schools that we're doing. And I have put together a lot of information, a lot of budgets, a lot of performance, a lot of things that are necessary to do that. I think the advisory committee needs to have some definite milestones or benchmarks that it says before we go forward with the state TIF dollars, we have these things in place and we have certain things accomplished. And so I'm looking to work on that process. We talked a little bit about a working group. I think a working group of the advisory committee, or a group that comes together and makes sure that the components are there for a successful completion of the projects, the adequate capitalization of the products is done right, and I think we have a lot of work to do on that yet, so I look forward to working on that. I think the process has a lot of opportunity, and it can make a lot of success, and it can have it be done right, but it needs to be structured in the foundation parts right, and I think we can work on that and make it happen.
Well, sir, what I would say is we did have give and take with the city attorney's office and with the mayor's office about concerns that we had with some of the draft language, and we believe, I don't know what you're referring to that Dr. Shockley talked about, we believe our concerns were adequately addressed in the draft that went to the state. And at this point, it's still a draft because it's not a done deal. We have to see what the state's going to push back on. So again, as many of these elected officials said, it is a process that we continue to work through. So yes, did we give some comments back? We absolutely did. As a state institution, we had to do that. And so we believe those have been addressed and we can work through them. Thank you.
Okay, well, last question for you guys. When do you anticipate the agreement and the signed RFP for the third-party evaluation? Did I hear December from Ms. Latham? Or did I misunderstand what you said?
No, when she mentioned December, the commissioners tasked County Administrator Jeff Green in December to get started on this. So that's the date she was talking about, was the previous September. We don't know exactly when that will happen. We've had meetings with the principal with Ford Frick, and he's laying out a plan, and we're finding that there may be some additional information he needs to make the right assessments. So we want to make sure we give him all the time that he needs, because as I stated last time, we don't want this to be a broad brush approach. We want this to be a pretty detailed and as accurate as possible approach.
So there's no anticipated date to start it?
The start has begun. It's the end date that we don't have a good grasp on yet, but it has begun.
I know there's a discussion between you and the city council on a joint.
Sure.
Sorry.
I'd like to speak. Mr. Murray, I want to start with asking you, sir.
Sir?
Good evening. I want to start with asking you to please discontinue distributing misinformation. Number one. Now, first of all, on the resolution, I've read what you've said. And what you've said is that the mayor is going to sign a resolution that binds the city of Colorado Springs. Haven't you, sir? So that is
No,
not.
I haven't.
Well,
That's, you're misinformed.
all right, well, let me just set the record straight then.
Go ahead, sir.
The resolution simply lays out what the state of Colorado is going to require of us before it will grant us any rebate of increased state sales tax. It does not obligate the city of Colorado Springs to do anything. We could elect, ultimately, we're not going to build any of these venues, or we could elect to build 3 and not the 4th. Let's be honest, the one really controversial element is the Sports and Events Center. I get that.
And the garage.
Let me finish, please, sir. Let me finish. This resolution does not bind the city or the county to do anything, other than to acknowledge that in order to receive any rebate of increased state sales tax, we have to meet certain requirements, like the museum has to have an agreement with the USOC. The Sports and Events Center has to have an agreement with the 23 national governing bodies, I believe, to hold X number of events. So let's just dispel that myth. Now, please hear me on this, sir. I will not support any tax increase associated with City for the Champions or any burden on the taxpayers. There's no condemnation involved with this. There's no eminent domain. It's not going to happen, folks. Here's the deal. And if you've got a better idea, I'd love to meet with you. In the last 13 years, our community has added only 538 jobs a year. It should be 6,000 to 10,000 a year if we want to have a vibrant community and be able to keep our young people here. So we have a stagnant economy. At the same time, we have a burgeoning increase in population. We have over 130,000 new residents here in the same 13 years. Think about that. Really, no new jobs in substance, and yet a big increase in population, and we know who they are. They're 55 plus with a spike at 85. People are moving here to retire and they're bringing their parents. Great for us in so many ways, including they're people with time and wisdom and experience who can help our community. But we depend heavily on sales tax, as you know. We do not have enough money to take care of this community, in my opinion. And so we're gaining population, people who are not working, who do not buy as much goods, so they aren't paying as much sales tax. So that's what I started with on this, which is we have a stagnant economy. We're losing our young people. I'm sorry Monica's hearing that, but we must find a way. So this is going to be a collaborative effort, Mr. Murray. I asked Dennis Heisey and Keith King to be co-chairs with me on this advisory board. I think that makes a statement. I asked Merv Bennett and Amy Lathan to chair a nominating committee, and they and others gathered ideas, and they came to me with a group of people that I just said, that's great. You folks did your work, and I accept everything you did. So I have not made one unilateral decision on this, and I will not make a unilateral decision on City for Champions. I hope you can believe that. And this is going to take time. This may take longer than a year, and I hope you'll be a positive part of it. I hope you'll ask tough questions. I support the Sports Event Center in concept. If in the end the economics are questionable or it doesn't make sense, I will not support it. I hope you believe that.
Well, sir, unfortunately, you lost your right to do that when you didn't take it to the community to begin with. Okay? When you refused to tell us it was a soccer venue instead of a baseball venue and hid the numbers behind a non-disclosure agreement, you lost that right. Well, sir, when you tell us we can vote for this thing,
Mr. Murray,
then you gain your right again.
Please, you're spreading false information, which is not fair to the public.
Ma'am, you let him pontificate.
Sir, please, this is not a debate. When you want to schedule a debate, I'm sure Julian would be a great co-debater with you. So
Yeah,
if
and
you'll,
Mr. Murray, I want to-
Why not
we've got
Mayor?
some other, we've got some other.
Mr. Murray, before you sit down, there's one number I think that needs to be corrected. When you walked up to the microphone, you talked about a 15,000 car parking garage. It's 1,500
I'm
cars.
sorry, I'm saying
Thank you.
1,500.
So-
It still violates the number of non-vehicles or vehicles in the city.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
I know there's, were you coming up? Our local celebrity, Brother Luck.
I don't know about all that, but well, on a lighter note, I wanted to kind of share my story as a resident, as a young professional, as an entrepreneur. And Julian, great story, beautiful speech. I'm originally from San Francisco, raised in Oakland, California. Came here 2006. after working around the country with another hotel company as a chef. Worked at Cheyenne Resort, fell in love with the city. Took the opportunity to go work in Chicago and do a project and missed that city life. One of the things that drew us back here was we saw the opportunity. My wife and myself, being young professionals, we see the city growing, and we, after living in the bigger city, understood that this is one of those towns that are on the cusp, and you can see it, you can feel it. And for me, coming back out here, it was all about creating opportunity. So that's really where a lot of our young professionals are right now, is we're creating our own opportunities. So for myself, moving back out here, no job, nothing lined up, I took over as a chef of the Craftwood, and about 7 months ago, you get to this point where you see that you need to make some decisions and be smart about managing the risk. So I made the jump to step into my own venue downtown and manage my risk as much as possible and open a restaurant. So, here we are 7 months later, growing, really doing a lot of cool stuff and making a name for what we do as our brand. But we see it. I mean, this is one of those towns that any young professional can come to and be successful. And all it takes is the support and, like you said, that strike, that match. So, we're really looking forward to what happens with this. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have a question on the text, and please feel free to come to the mic as I ask it. Somebody in the audience asked, what am I missing? How is it possible that people are against being awarded such a great moment by the state? Who can answer that? Why would anybody be against this?
Well, I think, first of all, we have a state grant in the amount of $120.5 million. The state of Colorado believes in us. Think about that. People in Denver were amazed that the State Economic Development Commission granted us our full request. We ought to feel good about that. The state of Colorado economic development leadership believes in us. I hope we can believe in ourselves in principle. There's a lot of work to do, as Keith King said, on this Sports and Events Center. A lot of work. It's going to take a year, maybe longer, to make sure that that's the right thing to do. And we're just being honest about that. I think that it's a great concept if it can be fully vetted. The due diligence is critical. So why would anybody be against this? I think the fair question to debate is, it's too complicated, Bob, I know, but if we're going to use any local sales tax, is that the right thing to do? Now, it's complicated, but what we're talking about is generating 500,000 new out-of-state visitors a year coming here. 500,000 more people from out-of-state coming to our region. And they will buy things, and they will stay in hotels, and they'll eat in restaurants. And they will generate revenue to us, sales tax to us. Should we take that revenue that we generate in sales tax from those 500,000 people and apply that toward helping to pay for mostly the Sports and Events Center, plus the garage and the other infrastructure improvements? I think that's a fair debate to have, Mr. Murray. I think we should have a robust debate on that. Second question is, should the area from which we collect that increased sales tax from out-of-state visitors, should that be the whole city? That's the plan. I don't know. I think it's reasonable because they're going to be staying throughout the city and buying things throughout the city. But again, I think that's a very fair debate. So why be against it? I got to tell you, I got people saying to me, you know what, Bach? I like this town just the way it is. I guess there are those folks that feel that way. I was here before most of you, I would guess, 64, not all of you. And I went to school here, and I couldn't find a job here in 1968. So I'm one of those people who had to leave Colorado Springs early in my life. Luckily, I was able to come back. So I think it's an idea worth pursuing. It's not the end all. I do think it's a catalyst, as I said, starting out. I think we need to have a robust debate. I'm up for it. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? I have two more questions from the text. Okay, President Keith King, what is City Council doing to encourage young professionals? And Are 12-hour council meetings discouraging average citizens from participating, and personal attacks in the paper chilling citizens from being a part of our government?
Okay, I'll try and answer all three of them. We just passed, I think, a very forward-thinking bill on commercial aeronautical zone and we collaborated fully with the mayor on this particular issue. And we just passed it last council meeting, and it was part of our marathon meeting. But Bob was there, and basically what this is trying to do is find a way to bring vitality back to the airport. I carried the legislation along with two other council members. We co-sponsored it to make sure that we are trying to find a way to create jobs. I think I don't know, Bob, if you know for sure, but I think we've had 2 or 3 companies, one for sure commit to about bringing 40, 50, 60 jobs, and roughly pay about $70,000 to $100,000. So we're looking at that to create opportunities at the airport, and I think we have a asset that is not being well utilized that we can use well by doing that. So that's one of the things that we just have recently done. Our long council meeting, productive. Well, we had a gun club that wanted to come on several occasions to us and finally got it scheduled. And they had a lot of citizen input, and I suppose you can say we'll limit citizen input and when they come before council and not allow them to fully vet their issues with us. And we gave them a full opportunity to explain why they did not want the gun club, and we gave the people who were putting the gun club where they wanted to a full opportunity to explain it, and so that took several hours. And so I think for us to be able to, it was an appeal of a planning commission decision, and the appeal of the planning commission decision was one that it takes time, and that's part of the issue time. We talked about this very issue today in our planning meeting, and we'd like to have council meetings be short, but when people come, and we have no limitation on the amount of people that can speak, sometimes we have 5 people speak, and sometimes we have 30 people speak. So we give everybody a chance to have an opportunity to come and speak. And then the third thing was about the
chilling effect on citizens when they're attacked in the paper.
Well, the issue of trying to be a fair and open government and being able to have an opportunity to have a dialogue about things, I think, is sometimes interesting. We are in a process of 3 years of a new form of governance, and we are trying to find the proper balance, I think, between the mayor and the council on how we function together and how we come together and try and do good things. And I think that those comments sometimes go both ways. I mean, I'm not trying to make it personal, and I hope that we don't make it personal on council, but we have many divided votes on council, and I think we are dealing with some very difficult issues. So I think we try to do it in a way that is professional and yet open and transparent and accountable. And so that process sometimes is a little blunt, but I think it's civil, and we have tried to remain civil and do good things and have good discussions. And so that's just part of the governance process, and I don't take it personally, and I hope the mayor doesn't take it personally. He's always welcome to come to council and have an opportunity to discuss his issues with us, and we're always happy to have him there. And so we will continue to work together, I think, to have the two bodies find the best way that we can govern the city of Colorado Springs, and there will be moments in the family that we have some interesting dialogue. So hopefully it keeps civil. So I hope that answers the question.
And the last question we have for the project is, will there be discounts to the venues for locals? Can we get our knee fixed, Brian, at the Sports Medicine and Performance Center at a discount, please?
Discount for what?
In what we pay. I assume that's what the question means.
I don't think we're that far along in the planning process about pricing. How's that?
Well, I think you should
We'll
commit
certainly
to it
put it on
now.
the list.
Monica, are you ready for that? What?
10% citizen discount.
There you go. So, will you note that, please?
I will. I've got
That
it.
is audience
Got it.
feedback for you. So, today I was having lunch with Tom Neppel, who is the chair of the board of the Colorado Springs Regional Business Alliance, and he was telling me about an event they had last night where a member of the Kauffman Foundation was here kicking off the Innovation Week. And the man said to Tom, he said, "You all have the best city anywhere." He said, "I travel all over the place, and your assets are extraordinary." And he said, "I know you have some of this conflict. I get it. But that kind of dialogue is healthy, and it's good, within reason." He said, "But you all should be so thankful that you live in this region." And I couldn't agree with him more. So can we end on that note? Can we have common ground here that we love living in this region? And on that note, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your updates.